Hi, I'm Malachi, CEO and engineer of Elite Automation. I know a lot of people want to get involved in automation. We're trying to make like these kind of beginner introductory videos for people who want to get into automation. So this video is basically going to go into like how to get equipment to be able to start training, because whenever you first want to get into automation, you generally don't know anything. You don't know any websites, you don't know anything like that at all. You don't know what PLC to use, things along those lines. You like basically know nothing. You're just asking the first question, like, how do I get involved? And that's exactly how you start, is you got to ask that question, like, how do I get involved? How do I get started? And I wanted to show you guys a website that is very well known by our industry, and it is very budget friendly, has some really cheap PLCs on there, or low cost PLCs you could say. We'll also be coming out with some trainers as well. We have a few PLC HMI automation trainers available from a couple of our vendors, and they're already like pre-built, ready to go. So that's something to keep in mind. I think some of them run from the range of like $1,000 to $3,000, so it is a hefty investment. It's more so like a lot of schools and stuff like that would use it, but I personally have invested money like that into automation equipment because I know I'm making automation my career. I want to be on the cutting edge of everything. I want to be as sharp as I can be at the industry and be ahead of as many people as I can be. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this website. Now, this website right here is Automation Direct, and it's automationdirect.com is how you get to the website. So as you can see up here, automationdirect.com. This is a very good site, very budget friendly. So we're going to go ahead and just dive into like what this site has to offer, and I'm telling you, it offers just about everything. Most of it is a budget item, but they are starting to get some more name brand stuff as they go along. So you have controllers, which are PLCs. This Do More right here is a good budget one to start off with. I always get the expandable one, so that way you can add inputs and output cards, analog cards. I like to have analog for trainers because it's more of an advanced technology than versus just a discrete input or output. You have some HMIs here, which are low cost as well. I don't advise super heavily on learning on a lot of this stuff for the sake of a lot of times you're not going to use it. I will say Automation Direct, because of its popularity, there are quite a few people that use them, quite a few manufacturers that use this, especially on like their budget project where it's like a little small machine. You may use one of these HMIs and PLCs, little small application that just has a couple inputs and a couple outputs. I'll see that a lot, even in bigger companies that generally go with Allen Bradley. They just don't see a purpose in adding a whole entire Allen Bradley PLC to something that just needs a couple inputs or outputs, yet it's still more flexible than just doing relay logic. And a lot of time it's more simple than doing relay logic as well. So they offer different communication things like switches and VPNs, stuff like that, serial converters, cabling and whatnot. Switches for the most part, unless you're going to build an actual cabinet, I would probably just buy one from like Best Buy or Walmart. But you can go this route too. We have entire panels built with these just for trainers. Your VFDs and stuff like that and your drives, there's probably going to be a later down the road thing, because then you're going to have to buy a motor to go along with it. But I mean, it is a great training tool if you put like an encoder with it. Put an encoder and a motor and a VFD and be able to command the motor to go to certain positions, command a conveyor belt to go to certain positions. To me, that's a very good skill to have. It's one of those things. It's like there's some of these things after you figure them out, it's okay, that's not much different than this other thing. But until you can like figure out these different like analog technologies and encoder technologies and stuff like that, you start to see the similarities after you know them, and you start to understand, oh, this is basically the same. But until you know those things, they don't seem the same. They seem like completely different beasts. And so that's why it's important to get to learn these different individual technologies. Doing a stepper motor, that's a good learning method. They're definitely stepping up on their mechanical stuff. They used to have like hardly any mechanical stuff. There's only a couple things. They're getting deeper into that. They have all kinds of different sensors. So there's your encoders, ultrasonics. So I usually like to use like an ultrasonic or a laser to do different measurement type of things. So either measuring the distance from something or measuring the thickness of something. That's very good practice as well. We utilize these a lot with robots and letting the robot know how far away it is from something, or if we place something, measuring that we placed it in the right orientation, basically as a confirmation of its placement. This is also kind of newer, where they're adding more of these process control type stuff. They've kind of always had some of this stuff, but it's expanding. They have push buttons. One of the things, see, like they have the Schmersel push button. That's somewhat new. Schmersel's a very well-known, high-quality brand. Where then you have the Automation Direct style push buttons right here. They're okay. They do the job. We use them on some applications that are like definitely our more budget applications. They have stack lights and stuff in here. Different relays if you want to, and relays are actually a really good one to have with the PLC, because get ones like that have an indicator on them, so that way whenever you turn on an output, you can see one of these relays fire. Then you can get some practice with wiring a relay and being able to test like firing an output from the PLC. And actually a very cheap method to start playing around with analog and start playing around with different like data technologies versus going with like an encoder and motor and whatnot. So they have vacuum and they have pressure. You may want to get one. I would get the one that has both. I think you can get one that has pressure and vacuum built into it for about the same price as you could get one that has just one or the other. So you get one of those, and then you can hook it up to an air compressor. You can just buy like a small air compressor, or if you already have one out in your garage, and then you can plumb up some of these fittings and hose to your air compressor. And then you can do stuff where you say, hey, after it gets to 20 psi's, I want to fire this relay. I lost my relays and everything. I think they're up here. But point being is you can have your analog signal going back to your PLC, and then after your air compressor reaches a certain pressure, you can have your PLC then do some other function. Maybe you have some air gun turn on, or maybe you have some air gun turn off after a certain pressure. You can just kind of play around and just manipulate the different data to do different things that you want it to do. Play around with adding some timers in there, and maybe even pulse the thing to turn off and on after it's a certain pressure. Or like if you wanted to even hardwire into your air compressor, you could cut the power of your air compressor after it reaches a certain pressure. The air compressor has one of those built into itself, but you can still control that with some relays and whatnot, just to play around with it and have the technology, especially if you're just going to buy like a cheap little air compressor. But like solenoid valves, you can do stuff like these. These would be a really good one right here. I'm going to click in there. You have like these grippers and rotary actuators. Those would be good just for seeing some actuation, seeing something open and close. Or just get some cylinders. I think the cylinders are fairly cheap on here, about $100 or something. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on through their website and just kind of give more of an overview. They have some safety stuff. With safety stuff, I'm a huge fan of safety. I spent a lot of my career in doing like risk assessments and stuff like that, and doing the engineering of safety systems. So I kind of have I'm very biased when it comes to safety stuff and safety rated things. One, safety is very important. If you mess up on safety, you could ruin somebody's life. You can kill somebody. So safety is very, very important. So I like how much importance is in the safety side of things, and then also just knowing like how things need to be redundant. We'll probably put out a video on that at some point in time. But safety stuff and safety rated items are safety rated because they meet certain safety requirements, and one of those being redundant circuits. There's a bunch more that goes into it. That's a whole nother video. So we have some different power supply stuff here. Here's some power supplies to convert like 120 to 24 volts. This is kind of some random stuff. Then some enclosures if you want to get an enclosure and back panel. Terminal blocks. Distribution blocks. I like these distribution blocks whenever you're doing some type of communication protocol. This one looks like it might be. Yeah, it looks like it definitely is. I could be wrong though. So what I mean by this is like If it's through a protocol, generally the cable going out of this thing will be like 4 wires, 5 wires, something like that. It'll be 5 wires, and this whole entire block right here can have 10 wires coming out of it, but 5 wires going back to your PLC. And it's because it's using a different communication protocol to talk from your PLC to this device here, and then this device talks to all your field devices. It just makes the wiring more simple. You know, I try to use like Ethernet IP or these different communication protocols. It makes it easier to wire things. If something ever happens to that cable, maintenance can just run a new 5 conductor cable out there. They don't have to re-land 19 wires. I think it's just overall the superior way to go. You know, there's plug connectors. You can plug connectorize things, which is another really good way to go. You know, this is like the go-to with some type of communication protocol. We have a lot more videos coming out on communication protocols. We're working with our vendors to get some different test equipment, and we're gonna do some like IO link type of stuff and connecting them to the Allen Bradley PLC and just doing some like tutorial videos on those type of things, kind of giving a review of what we think about the product, but really more on the technical side of things, like how do you set it up, what's the advantage of going that route. Just kind of wraps up everything that they got here. They got some labelers, different things like that. Hopefully this was valuable to you guys. We also are able to provide you with different products if you need them. If you don't want to go through Automation Direct, if you want us to build you out a trainer and you want to purchase that trainer from us, you can do that as well. Like I said, we have different partnerships with our vendors to come up with different products. And our vendors are also going to be supplying us some different products as well. So y'all have a good one, and catch y'all in the next.
Anything I want now, I bring it to fruition. I'm my own boss now, I make my own decisions. I do not agree to the terms and conditions. I don't never follow other people, I just follow intuition. Tunnel vision when I get up in the zone. Never needed nobody, did it on my own.